Okay, good afternoon. We, as always, will wait a few minutes and let people log on. I hope everyone got a chance to get outside today. It's unbelievable outside. I just recently had all the windows open. It's a spectacular night. And we don't know how many of these days we'll have left, so we hope you got a chance to get outside. We're just going to give it a minute. If someone wants to check in, if you can hear, let me know. I'd appreciate it. Okay, it is 4:01. It is October 22nd, which means we are less than 2 weeks to Election Day. In my estimation, today is probably the single most important day leading to the election. Tonight, we'll probably decide in a debate pretty much. Stacey, thank you very much for that. We'll probably decide everything, and we'll talk about why. But this is the last time you'll see these two candidates together. We know the messages. We know what they're going to say. But both have some significant things to gain tonight. And we look at the polls and the momentum, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But before we get to national stuff, Elizabeth Smith, good afternoon as well. Before we get to the national stuff, and by the way, to those just tuning in, they've been watching for the first time, feel free to post questions, comment. I answer what I can. And if I can research things, get back to you. But it helps when we have some back and forth. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to not be on the same page. We want that. The purpose of this is that we can take topics that may be, right now, politics is controversial no matter where you put it. But if I just take a post and put it on Facebook, 10 minutes later, there'll be people murdering each other. Here we can have a conversation. And if you have something to add, have it. If someone attacks you, I will block them. If someone goes after the content of your comment, we want that. We want real conversations about real issues. So, but before we get to national stuff, I do want to promote an event called Miles from McGuirk. If you're in Brantford watching this, I'm going to read this, and we posted it on Brantford 7's Facebook page earlier, but I'll may post it again later. It says, recently, Coach Kathy McGuirk was diagnosed with ALS. Kathy McGuirk is a legendary field hockey coach in Brantford. I think generations of women have been impacted positively by her and an amazing level of success on the field. Our goal is to unite together to help her fight back after all these years she fought for us. Our purpose is to do what Miss McGuirk loves most and get up, attack the day, and be active in an effort to raise money and awareness for ALS research. This year, to keep our community safe, the walk will occur virtually from a neighborhood of your choice on October 25th. Walk your neighborhood, local hiking trail in your backyard. The options are endless. And then there's a link here, Miles from McGuirk at eventcreate.com. Asking for donations to register, what have you. It's on our Brantford 7 Facebook page. Please take a look if you can support that. I have been to countless sports Hall of Fame dinners, and people and students and student athletes who have been impacted positively by Coach McGuirk are endless. And so she did so much for so many. If the community could do something for her, certainly that would be a worthwhile cause. So we want to make sure that's promoted. If you see it on Brantford 7, want to share it to those you know, want to get involved, please do. It'll be helpful. So as we go a little further, we'll start about the stimulus package, because so much, I was under the belief that there'd be a stimulus deal today because I thought Trump would want to say something tonight at the debate. But it looks like Pelosi and Mnuchin, who's representing the White House, are coming to some sort of deal. The problem still becomes the Senate. We have no idea if the Senate has any actual desire to pass anything. The numbers are getting worse. The business numbers are getting worse. We're seeing people struggle. We have reached 3% positive rate in Connecticut, 3% in Rhode Island, and those are the better states. So I have no idea what they're waiting for. This idea that if the Democrats get in, they likely will pass a larger stimulus, $3 or $4 trillion, but you may not get that until the end of January when Biden takes office. By the end of January, a lot of evictions will take place. A lot of people will not be able to keep their jobs. A lot of businesses will close. And you're looking at a future where the small restaurants close, the small businesses close, Amazon takes over 90% of business, giant corporations have everything. Most of the restaurants you see will be chains, and this is reality. After going through 6-7 months of crushed business, to go through the winter where there's no outside seating will destroy these businesses. I have zero idea. We could talk about the political games between the White House and the Democrats, but at least they're both at the table. What the Senate Republicans are doing makes no sense. It doesn't make sense for the left, doesn't make sense for the right, doesn't make sense for those businesses, the very people that are looking for votes for it. Nothing here makes sense. It hasn't made sense for months. The fact that they waited 2 months to even come up with a proposal didn't make sense. And listen, you're already so much in debt with COVID. What is another $2 trillion? This is when you're supposed to use that money. And this goes back to the bigger issues of tax cuts and how to tax, because when a nation's in debt, like Trump did, and you pass tax cuts, you're putting off fixing that debt. So you can yell and scream all you want. We're fiscally conservative and we want to pay down the debt. Then why did you pass massive tax cuts, no matter who they were for, the rich or the poor, or some combination of that, when you're still in debt? And so we're seeing that worse now. What you want to do when the economy is strong is that's when you collect your taxes, so that when things like this happen, you can be there. So I look at that as mismanagement in general by Congress. We'll probably hear more about that in some of the political debates, possibly tonight. But I cannot tell. I don't see a political strategy coming from the Senate Republicans on the stimulus. It makes no sense to me. So with that in mind, with that stress, with that level of uncertainty, and I've mentioned this many times, that the primary role of government is to provide certainty. And right now, the Senate Republicans are doing the opposite. But let's talk about tonight. We go back to the polls. Now, every podcast for the last few weeks, we have looked at Real Clear Politics. I do not look at the polling before coming on, so I can look at it real time with those watching. So we see the Real Clear Politics national average is Biden plus 7.9. He's over that 50% threshold. Remember something, though. The national average doesn't matter. I know there's a Quinnipiac poll out earlier today that said he has a double-digit lead, and over the 50% threshold is key. But in states like California and New York, that skews the national polling. So it doesn't matter. The only thing that really matters is getting to 270 Electoral College, and that means only 5 or 6 states really matter at all. Those are our battleground states. So we have the question of our top battlegrounds. And right now, Biden's at 49.4, Trump's at 45.3, so Biden's up 4.1. If we click on, and you can do this with me, the Biden up 4.1, we can look over time, and we can go back to yesterday, 4.1, and it was at 4.5. If we push the thing back, we see it was at 5 points just about 2 weeks ago. So, or I'm sorry, 7-8 days ago. So we see momentum moving in Trump's direction. The question there is, will that momentum continue? And 2, is there enough time? And so tonight would be a massive night for both Trump and Biden. They're going to have very different goals. Trump, as much as he's a wild card, as much as crazy things come out of his mouth, his goal tonight is, even if for a glimpse, to look presidential. Look like a president. Because where he's losing is white women. White women in the polls are losing confidence in Trump. He won the senior vote by 7 last time against Hillary. He's losing that, largely due to white women. And it's interesting because his argument was always public safety. So as these Black Lives Matter rallies were happening and a lot of violence was taking place, his argument was squelch the violence, support our towns, help crime and safety, be tough on crime and safety, thinking that's the demographic he would get. And it has not worked that way, because they're losing confidence in someone who tweets like a madman and does and says crazy things constantly. And tonight, his goal is going to be to get them back on board. Now, the first 2 minutes for each one of them, they cannot be interrupted or let's put it this way, the other mic will not be on. Can Trump yell loud enough to interrupt somebody? Sure. There's no question about it. But having those 2 minutes gives Biden and Trump 2 uninterrupted minutes, theoretically. Trump is looking at that as a positive. Much of the criticism of Trump that came from the right early on was that he let Biden off the hook. There were times they were going back and forth. Biden was talking and likely about to say something that may have been damaging. And Trump, in his incessant need to interrupt, kept cutting him off. So there were Republicans saying, wait, let him bury himself. Let him say these things. And Trump wasn't doing that. He couldn't help himself but to cut him off. So tonight, you're probably going to see Trump back off a little bit, yell something, attack. When Biden starts talking, back off, and hope Biden says something stupid. Those people that are on the fence, that small group of people who are on the fence, are looking at Trump, who have voted for Trump 4 years ago, are going to look for, show me some substance behind the insanity. We've come to expect the Twitter. We've come to expect the nonsense comments with the false statements, the absurdities, the nicknames he gives to everybody. But is there a rhyme or reason behind this? Is there a presidential person behind this to get some confidence in that base? Trump's also quite upset that he thought this debate was supposed to be about foreign policy. Trump's biggest positive is to say this: he hasn't started any foreign wars. Right now, America is not part of any significant foreign wars. We closed significantly, not completely, but Afghanistan and Iraq. And this is not a small thing. And it's not a small thing because if you listen to Chris Murphy and you listen to Democrats for the last 4 years, every single time there was any international incident, every Democrat you know said, oh my God, it's World War III. Nuclear war is about to happen. Trump's going to lead us into war. It hasn't happened. And there's a question of, is that due to him being such a wild card? And when it comes to military and foreign affairs, there's this concept of a proportional response. A nation does something, and the reaction to that is in proportion to that. They bomb an embassy, and something similar happens. With Trump, you don't know if you bomb an embassy and he just wipes your country off the planet. So there's this such uncertainty with Trump that maybe that's part of it. Does that last forever? I don't think so. But for whatever the case is, he has a right to say, we have not gotten you into any major foreign wars. That's not a small thing. That's a significant thing. And so his thought, I'm sure at some point that will come up. It's not on the 6 topics. The 6 topics are race, COVID, obviously, the economy, I forgot what's public safety, those types of public safety. He has an upper hand. Now, law and order for police, he has the upper hand on that. COVID reaction, that depends on where you stand. Should he have done more early on to make sure people and taking it more seriously? I get that you can say, guys, it's not a big deal, calm down, to not get mass hysteria. I can understand that, but in hindsight, that may have been the wrong choice. So those are open attacks on him. Not that he cares. He can talk about whatever he wants. It doesn't matter what the topic is. He'll talk about whatever he wants to. But tonight, those that are still on the fence and those that may be polling for Biden that voted for Trump 4 years ago are looking for some semblance of presidential behavior. If he has a few minutes where he makes solid points, speaks coherently, and looks like a president. I'm talking about not calling somebody else names, not Sleepy Joe, not yelling about Pocahontas, not talking about the groups, the radical groups that he was favored in the past. If he actually gives coherent arguments, and not for the whole time, you don't expect 90 minutes of coherence from Donald Trump, but he shows semblance of that. Like we said yesterday, you do not get the celebrity status he had. You don't get into kids' movies. You don't become an international icon without being liked. People like Donald Trump. The left doesn't want to say that, but the left was all friends with him 5-6 years ago. They were all on the same fundraisers. Some were Hillary Clinton was at his wedding. So the people liked Trump. They spoke highly of Trump. For whatever reason, I don't really want to have a beer with the guy. It'd be interesting. I can't see him being friends, but people like him. I watched The Apprentice. I love The Apprentice. Because of that, people are willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. If he looks presidential tonight, even for a glimpse, he's asked a question, those first 2 minutes, he gives a coherent, concise, intelligent answer. It will go miles to help his candidacy. However, when you have a 4-point lead in the key battleground states, Biden wants to do no harm. He doesn't want to fall into any traps. He doesn't want to say anything stupid. He just wants to lay back. If you notice, Biden's not even stumping right now. He's not out there. Barack Obama's out there giving more speeches. So Biden has a chance here to let Trump be Trump. If he falls apart, the numbers stay the same, he wins easily. Trump has momentum. It's getting tighter. He's looking to instill confidence in those voters that voted for him 4 years ago in those swing states and that are questioning that vote now. If he gets those voters back, he very likely could win the election. So a lot is at stake tonight. We will have a good, and I may go live. I mean, if there's, you guys can let me know if you want to go live and talk about this more at 10:30 tonight. But depending on what we see, we can see this thing's a race, Trump's alive, or Biden just ended it, where Trump cannot gain new voters and people are saying, you know, it's safe to go with Biden, let's go another direction. And for those attacking Biden for being left, and I said the same thing with Obama, Obama wasn't far left and Biden wasn't far left. In fact, Biden was more moderate than Obama. That's why Biden was added to the ticket. So to the Obama ticket. His close friends are Republicans. He's worked in a bipartisan manner for decades. So this idea that he's far left just isn't true. The people that are for Trump are not necessarily left or right. We're seeing every day Republicans announce, I'm endorsing Biden. Why? Because they're not on Team Trump. Team Trump is, we hate the system. We're mad at the system. We don't want any part of it. And we want to shake it up. And we want to piss off those people. And we're going to get Trump back in there. And there's enough people that feel that way. So I'm surprised. I thought, you know, the stimulus package was a big issue. I couldn't make sense of it for the longest time. There was simply no way to get those $1,200 checks before the election. So I figured, all right, with the debate coming tonight, maybe Trump will say, let's push for this. Let's push for a $2.5 trillion plan, and let's push it through the Senate. And it turns out that we don't have a deal. So the market is expecting a deal. The market's up today. But for the life of me, I can't figure that stimulus package out. Okay, and what else do I have on the list here? So let's talk about Rosa DelOro. You know, I'm in Brantford, and so we are in the 102nd Legislative District. We have the 98th Legislative District. We have the 12th Senate District. And if you just look at the numbers in a presidential year, it is not a crazy position to say that the Democrats will sweep those. Like, we already know Sean Scanlon will win. He's unopposed. Robin Comey is an incumbent, won in a non-presidential year 2 years ago against a good opponent. Bobby Parado was a good guy, honest, straightforward guy. And now it's a presidential year. In a presidential year, you're going to have more voters come out. Majority of those voters are on the left. So the question becomes, if people vote party ticket, they're voting, you know, Biden the top and Democrat straight down. It typically helps the Democrat. Christine Cohen is a little bit, that race, the 12th District Senate race, a little bit different because you're covering Durham, Killingworth, North Brantford, which are fairly Republican areas. At the same time, Brantford's a little mixed. Guilford is far more Democrat, and Madison is moving more left. That being said, what we can't figure out is Rosa wins every year by massive margins. Like, she couldn't, it's so, in years past, any money she had on hand, she used for other races. There was no chance of Rosa DelOro losing. But against her opponent now, who has serious money, Rosa's come out swinging. And the question that we have to ask ourselves is, I don't know their internal polling, and there's not much polling for those types of races because they expect them to be won easily by a Democrat. And Rosa very likely will win fairly easily. but it may not be by that same 2-to-1 margin. And if there's a change to that margin, if it tightens, that can have an impact on lower races. And so we saw a situation where the opponent came out and claimed that Rosa DelOro put up Rahm Emanuel, the former Obama chief of staff, in her house in exchange for favors that money went to her husband for polling or something like that. Whatever. And I guess it wasn't true, but he stayed there before. There's a bunch of reasons for it. But Rosa came out swinging, and there are ads with her attacking her opponent. On top of that, there's third parties, PACs, political action groups, that have paid money all over social media to go after Rosa's opponent. And I think her last name is Stryker. Very wealthy woman, property owner, landlord from New York, what have you. I mean, she's from Connecticut, but owned a lot of property in New York. And so the question I'm asking myself is, I've never seen Rosa come out this aggressively against an opponent. She's never had to. Is polling telling them that this is tighter than we think? In a blue state, in a blue district, in largely blue towns. And it could be that the thought process is there's no significant excitement behind Biden. That's possible. But to see Rosa this way is so unusual. It's not something we've seen before. So it's not a crazy thought to look back and say, what are they seeing where she is spending money on ad buys and attacking her opponent? So in politics, the first thing you do, if you're way ahead, you're going to spend some money on ad buy. Like Sean Scanlon will spend $5 on some signs, right? Or use signs. He'll give his money back. That he's part of the Citizens Election Program. He'll give much of that money back. To someone who has a massive lead over their opponent, typically they'll spend some money on positive campaigns, a mailer that says, here's the things I've done for you, the things I've worked on, and it's generally positive. Don't mention their opponent. This year, Rosa's going after her opponent, which can tell me that either she felt personally attacked, or polling is showing that someone that comes with that kind of money, like her opponent, can make up some ground. On top of that, we have, and I just was brought to my attention, reminded to me earlier when I posted about this, was that this Christopher Columbus thing, what kind of legs does it have? That Italian base that she's had for literally generations, for decades, are they that pissed off? And is that going to swing some votes? She has typically won 65% of the vote. If that number ends up in the 59% range or 57%, it's a significant win. It's a big margin. But in a presidential year, if that happens, it raises serious questions about the district as a whole. We had Obama win by massive margins because of New Haven, and the vote was spectacular. I mean, he just galvanized people. That hasn't happened since. That black inner city vote did not come out overwhelmingly for Hillary. Trump's getting more of that now. There doesn't seem to be a ton of excitement for Biden. In fact, I'll tell you, I mean, even in the last 2 days, I could probably check my phone. I must have gotten 4 different messages from MoveOn.org, or what are these other ones? Hi, Stephen. It's Sage with Move On. This morning, Senate Republicans. I'm getting these things constantly. At some point, there's a diminishing returns where people just don't care anymore. In fact, you get to the point that you're pissed off. I'm tired of getting these damn texts. I'm not going to vote for this person, or I'm not going to show up. So while there's energy in the base, is there general energy for Joe Biden? I don't see it. There's energy for Trump. His base is energized. And if he gives that base even a glimpse, or gives those people who voted for him 4 years ago a glimpse of presidential behavior, they will forgive the crap. They will forgive Twitter. It would look like a 10-point lead for Biden nationally can shrink down to 6 or 5. And in those swing states, Trump can be neck and neck. So tonight, there's a lot on the line. And we want to ask ourselves some key questions, what we're looking for. Here are the 6 topics that are going to be discussed. And I'll read through this. Fighting COVID. What will Trump say? Well, we know Biden's going to go after Trump for mishandling it. Trump's going to say we're going to have a vaccine tomorrow and we're doing a great job and it's in remission, basically. Do the numbers support that? Not necessarily, but that's what he's going to say. What would I say? I would say this. When we're in that room making a decision, we realize that simply shutting the government down will cost lives as well. When unemployment goes up, so does mental health issues, other health issues, depression, suicides go up. People don't have money coming in. The stress goes through the roof. There are repercussions for shutting down the economy. So this isn't we're going to lose people to COVID or zero. This is we lose people to COVID or react to that and we lose people in other ways. So these decisions are never just black and white. This would be my answer if I was Trump. We decided to say, listen, take some precautions, but it's not a big deal. Do I agree with that strategy? No, I don't. But I understand where it came from. In general, the last thing you want to do is get people up in arms and too early get them afraid. And so I get the thought process. In hindsight, it was a mistake. And to this day, I don't see him pushing masks. You know, we have rally after rally with no one wearing masks. So can he say he's taking this seriously despite having had it? I don't think so. And will he answer it the way I would answer it? I doubt that too. So that's probably going to be a low point for him. And that's the number one issue facing the country right now. The second one is race in America. This fever has kind of died down in the last month and a half, I think, as kids have gone back to school. People have gotten a little bit back to their lives. But he is going to use that. Trump will use that as a law and order debate. That we've had, all these protests and rallies really became trashing buildings. People have died. Police officers have been shot. And he will talk about his staunch support of law and order and likely attack Biden for taking as long as he did to come out publicly for his support. National security. These are always interesting because I don't think the general public has a real good idea on the role that the president is playing in national security or the Russia issues, the China issues. So they'll both yell stuff, but it won't really resonate in any way, shape, or form. Climate change, that's just red meat to the base of the Democratic Party. Biden will say it's real, we have to fight it, and that's obviously Trump will say, I don't know what Trump will say. No idea. Trump will probably talk about that Green New Deal being proposed and socialism, and they're going to shut down every business, and we're not going to be able to fly anymore and that sort of thing. He'll go to the extremes. Leadership is one of the topics. You can figure that out for yourself. And one of the topics is American families. I don't know what that means. It's a very general feel. Trump can use that to divert to national issues or international trade, where he probably has an argument against China. I don't know what Biden will say about that. Maybe social issues or healthcare, what have you. That might come up with the appointment of the new Supreme Court nominee in that issue. But tonight is significant. I'll be posting live from my personal Facebook page, and I connected Twitter too, again, my personal Twitter, if you want to respond to that. And if there's a request or some questions, we might come on live afterwards. But tonight's a massive night when it comes to this election. And how Trump comes out will be significant in determining any chance he has the rest of the way. And you're going to look for, we've talked about this, momentum in the polling. So if it stays where it is and nothing changes, huge advantage Biden. But if it starts moving, even if the polls stay pro-Biden, if it starts moving more towards Trump, remember the polls have a couple-day lag time, right? So that's momentum is going in Trump's direction going into election. If he does something tonight to be even just a little presidential, that momentum will speed up a little bit, and you'll see this thing tighten, and it could push him over the line election day. We have a long way to go. It's going to be a very interesting 2 weeks. Okay. Thanks for joining me again. It is our last podcast of the week, unless we come on afterwards, and I'll take feedback from you guys on that. Until then, we'll be back on Monday. I'm not sure what other candidates we're going to have on the rest of the way. We're a little late. Early voting has already started, so we may not have anyone else on the rest of the way, and we'll just talk about different races. Next week, I'll do endorsements for the 98th. The 98th. Well, that's easy. 102nd and the 12th Senate District. And we'll go from there. Guys, have a great weekend. The weather looks phenomenal. Get outside. Hopefully I see you around town. And I will see you again on Monday. Have a great evening.